put you on gallery view so I can see you all. Frederick, can you hear me? As I can't see you, but I'm assuming you can hear, no problem. Well, let's hope he's able to. Ah, good. Okay, good. I just like to at least have one little confirmation so I'm not just talking to a black box with no voice. Okay, so as usual, we're going to come and sit for a bit so that we can bring ourselves inwards, so we're more receptive to understanding the sutras. We're able to bring them into our body so they don't just remain thought patterns. So finding a comfortable sitting position where you're able to keep the spine elongated. Start to bring yourself inwards, noticing the inner vibration of the body. And start to bring the awareness to the breathing. Noticing the inhales and the exhales. We're going to do a breathing technique that brings more focus to the exhalation. We're going to slowly increase the exhalation, but just to a comfortable place, so there should not be any strain. So to start, I'm going to breathe in normally and exhale to the count of 2. 1, 2. Inhale normally. Exhale to the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Inhale normally. Exhale to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhaling, exhaling. At the end of the exhale, just pause for a moment. And then inhale normally. Exhale. You can increase the exhalation if it feels comfortable. Pause at the end of the exhalation. And as soon as it feels right, take an inhale. Exhale. Pause at the end of the exhalation. Inhaling, you're going to continue this breathing technique at your own rhythm. So you're breathing, inhale just normally, trying to slightly increase the exhalation, and pause at the end of the exhalation. When you're pausing at the end of the exhale, just pause long enough till it feels like the instinct of wanting to inhale arises. So try not to force it. We want this to be a calming breathing technique. Just should not feel stressful in any way. The end of the next exhalation, just bring yourself back to a normal breathing, natural breathing. Bring the palms in front of the chest. We'll chant Om to begin, inhaling. Om. Just rub the hands together, warming up the palms, bringing them over the eyes. Opening the eyes behind the palms, and when you're ready, releasing the hands. So welcome tonight for more Yoga Sutras. So if you have your Yoga Sutra commentary, we're going to start with Yoga Sutra number 1.34. 134. Where we left off last time. So I'll go through each of the words individually and give you some of the meanings that you can give to each of the Sanskrit words. So prachardana, it means exhalation. Vidarana, byam, means holding out by retention or restraining. And wa or va, depending on which part of India you're studying from. So wa is more southern India, is or. Pranasya, so of the breath. So in total, so we're talking about, he's going to list a whole bunch of sutras that are listing ways to have the mind be cleared. So they all are starting with or. So or this, or this, or this, all these different ways to clear the mind. So or by exhaling and restraining the breath. So this is Patanjali's way of introducing some pranayama to our practice, and he's emphasizing the exhalation and the holding of the exhalation. So this is why we started with a little breathing technique that we were focusing on exhalation, because it's said that inhale is stimulating and exhaling is calming. So we're looking to calm the mind by focusing on that exhalation. And let's see, what are my other notes I have here? So we know that there's a link between the mind and the breath. We can see this just if we pay a little bit of attention to our breathing during our daily life. When we feel angry, we tend to hold the breath. When we're scared, we stop the breathing. When we feel calm and relaxed, the breathing becomes more slow. When we're excited, about something, the breathing might become more, hyper. All these different kinds of things happen with our breath. So, and I want to say the exhalation, it engages the relaxation response. And inhalation is related to activity. So when we want to get a lot of strength, we're going to take a big inhale. When we want to let go, right, we want to do some big exhalations. So when we inhale, when we come into the world, we take our first inhale. When we leave our body, we take our last exhale. So when the mind is deeply concentrated, we will notice that the breath becomes very slow. And so if you've been practicing meditation, sometimes when we're sitting and we become very quiet, it's almost like the breath just stops on its own. Have you experienced this? Notice this? And so this is called Kavala Kumbhaka. So it's an automatic retention of the breath without effort. Okay, when we come very still, or we might notice when we're in Shavasana at the end of our practice, that it's almost like, it's a corpse pose, and it's almost like our breathing just stops automatically without any effort. So Patanjali is suggesting to us that there's several ways to calm the mind, and this is one way to calm the mind, by practicing pranayama, or practicing observing our breath. So the next sutra, Sutra 135, it's Vishayavati, which means relating to objects, and it's usually assumed it's sense objects. So it's objects that we can perceive through our senses, right? We can feel, we can touch, we can smell, we can see, we can hear. Vidarana Bhyam, what am I doing? I'm going back to the previous one. So Vishayavati, and then Va, again, or Pravritir. This means cognition, but the finer activity of cognition, the finer activity of chitta. So it's a subtle cognition, right? It's not just thinking about, the door over there, right? It's more subtle than this. Utpana means arisen, to arise. Manasa is of the mind. Manas is mind, so manasa is of the mind. Stiti is steadiness, like samastiti. Nibbadani is fixing or holding. So altogether, or stability of the mind is achieved when a finer mental activity has arisen relative to an object holding the mind in steadiness. So what does this mean? Because it sounds very obscure, right? So it's relating to objects of the senses, as I said. So basically what we're looking at is that when we focus our mind on something through our senses, that it's going to help us to still the mind. Okay, so let's see some examples. So let's say I'm going to, in our yoga asana, okay, so it's not really what Patanjali has intended, but for us to bring the sutras to our daily life, when we're practicing our yoga asanas, we are bringing our awareness to our body and the sensations that we're having in our body. And slowly, slowly, like at the beginning when the teacher says, put the hand on the floor, it's a very gross movement. It's just like, Hulk, my hand is down. Feel the floor under your feet, same thing. It's a very gross sensation. But slowly, slowly, we start to feel the subtlety of the sensations in our body. Oh, Meghna, your cat is gone. You went away. It's very cute, your cat. So slowly we're feeling those sensations in our body. And as we feel those, we get a deeper and deeper sensation, and we get to feel more and more subtlety. Same when we focus on our nose with our breathing, right? We feel the inhales and the exhales coming through the nostrils, and we get a more finer appreciation of those senses. So we can use our senses actually to still the mind, to calm the mind. Let's see. And what they say, what Vyasa says, is that when we do this, we directly experience things, right? So if we're going to go into meditation and we concentrate on the sound, right? And we start to develop these very acute sensation of sound. And the more we are able to experience this, the more shraddha, the more faith that we will have in our practice. So think about when we started our yoga asana practice. Maybe somebody gave you some ideas, oh, this is going to help this or that, and you're like, yeah, okay, that sounds interesting. But then when you start to experience all these subtle aspects of our yoga asana, because very often if somebody says, oh, it's going to change the way, it's going to remove fog from your mind, it's going to change the way what you want to eat, right? Because you don't want to eat certain foods anymore because you've gained this sensibility in the senses. You can feel how those different foods will affect your body. When you first hear this, it sounds a little bit like, how would doing this exercise change the way I'm going to relate to what I put in my body, right? But we all know, because we've been practicing, that it does. And so once we experience that, then we have more faith, right? We have more faith in our asana practice that it is going to work on healing us, bringing the body, the mind, and the breath together, or the body, breath, mind, and self, soul, right? So at first it's a little obscure, but as we practice regularly, we start to have more faith. So I'm going to read a quote from Vyasa's commentary. It's from the this commentary that is one of my favorites, from Hariharananda. So the awakening of these higher perceptions stabilizes the mind firmly. Okay. Removes doubt and forms the gateway to knowledge acquirable through concentration. Okay, so it's going to firm our mind and remove doubt, and it's going to open to some, to our concentration, the knowledge that we can get through concentration. The Shastras, inference and verbal instructions of preceptors can no doubt produce vertical knowledge of things. So we can read the Yoga Sutras, we can infer that if this happens, that must happen. People give us verbal instructions, but it's going to help us in our knowledge, but yet until by the foregoing method an object is brought within the pure view of one's own perception, such knowledge would remain an indirect knowledge. So we hear all this, people tell us things, but it's not our own knowledge, it's not our own experience, and not helpful in producing firm conviction in respect of subtle things like the state of salvation, etc. So we may not have this firm conviction in the ability to have the experience of certain types of samadhis, right? Because there's a ladder of samadhi, there's many samadhis. So if we just read a book, yeah, okay, that sounds interesting, but until we start to experience some things, maybe we won't really have full faith that we are actually able to achieve certain levels of samadhi, right? That is why, for the removal of doubts in respect of instructions and knowledge acquired from teachers, some specific feature of the object must be definitely perceived. Okay, so once you perceive a little bit on your own, then maybe the doubts of other layers of this might be removed, right? If a part of the knowledge acquired from the Shastras is proved to be true by direct perception, then faith is developed in subtle matters. Right? Because the subtlety, that there's oneness between all of us, that there is something that will never die. These all sound just like words. I know when I first heard those kinds of concepts, I was like, yeah, right. Whatever, talk, right? But it wasn't until I started going inside and feeling more deeply inside and having certain experiences that I really recognize. Doesn't mean that I don't kind of get lost in the outer world, but I really know that there is something more than I, like my body and all this that we see around us. That is why such training for purifying the mind has been prescribed. So this is page 81 if you happen to have that Yoga Sutra. Okay, so then we can go on to Sutra 1.36. So, Vishoka means sorrowless or free from sorrow. Or Jyotishmati. So this is beautiful. This is luminous or effulgent or self-illuminated. So Vishoka wa Jyotishmati means or free from sorrow and effulgent. So self-illuminating. So the mind is cleared. So this has to do with focusing on a mind that is, this is to focus your mind on something that is free from suffering, is sorrowless, and is self-illuminating. So what would be self-illuminating? So self-illuminating is the I sense. It's the deep, it's the soul, it's the part of us that is illuminating everything else. Okay, so let's see my other notes here. So, for example, Vyasa explains this sutra as contemplation practice on the innermost core of the heart, which brings about knowledge of the buddhi, right? The higher intelligence. So if we can practice going inside to this illuminated place within us, which is within all of us, then we might develop certain knowledge. So he goes on to explain that the mind engrossed in the thought of the pure I sense appears like a waveless ocean, placid and limitless. So the pure I sense, this is, it could be the awareness of awareness, the sense of I amness, right? The asmita. And they say that when this happens, it's going to reveal things that are subtle and hidden from view. Okay, so it's not like things that I can see around me. It's this deep sense of something that is illuminated. So I like to think about like if you could also think of in Buddhism, like the Buddha heart, right? The Buddha heart within all of us. And so we have this light within us. We all have this light. And we can think of it as like if you imagine a flame. So we can imagine these things. At the beginning, we start using our imagination. So we can imagine we have this light within us, but it gets covered by these little pieces of colored paper. Our experiences, our karmas, our conditioning, all these things that are society, all these things that are covering up this real effulgent glow that we have within us. It all gets covered, and slowly we want to peel away these little pieces of colored paper so that what remains is that full illumination, right? This self-illuminated part of us. And it's normal that we go, if you believe that we've went through more than one life, when we come to this life, well, it's got a lot of, it's like we have a lot of baggage. We're carrying this baggage with us. And so we can't recognize that actually we are this illumination, right? Ramana Maharishi always was talking about that we didn't need to become enlightened. We are already enlightened. Okay, so it's kind of saying the similar thing as Ramana Maharishi, and he always talked about the heart. Another quote from Hari Harananda: the transparent, radiant sense of ego, which is asmita. And this word ego, we get confused because we use this word in our English language as kind of something negative. But we have to change this. We have to just flip that, because ego isn't anything negative. If I don't have an ego, I'm not going to be able to say, my name is Linda, right? I'm not going to be able to say, I am female, I am, 52, I am a mother, I'm not going to be able to use that language if I don't have an ego. So there isn't anything inherently wrong with the ego. In fact, first we have to integrate our ego. Rather than just push things away and repress things, we need to understand our ego before we can get really, really deep into this, right? So the sense of ego is the sense of I-ness, I amness, I am. Radiating from the heart to infinity is called Vishoka Joyishmati. I'm terrible with those things. Or a fulgent light free from sorrow. So this light free from sorrow. And it is within all of us. And we all can experience it to a certain degree. Okay, so this is another way to stabilize the mind or to find calmness in the mind, is to go into that illuminating light, to bring our mind to this place. The next one, Sutra 137. So, one word at a time. Vita means without or free from. Raga, attachment or desires. So, Vita Raga is free from desires. Vishayam means a sense object. Va or Chittam, mind stuff or consciousness. So we can also find this calming of our mind or steadying of the mind, different ways we want to, whatever calls to you, whatever makes sense to you. So, or on a mind that is free from desires. So this is thinking about somebody, for instance, like Ramana Maharishi or another guru who has already achieved this, right? They've achieved this renunciation from desires, right? This full renunciation. So if we, where am I? My other notes there. Okay. So we pick up on the attitudes of those around us. We can see this, right? When we're in a big group of people that are, really passionate about something. I don't know if you've ever went on a march or, been in a protest or something like that. You just like pick up that energy. Same when you're practicing in a group of people. If you've done like primary series practice, ding, 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 and it becomes kind of like a meditation, you pick up on the energy of that around you. So if we put our mind in like our concentration, we meditate on the mind of somebody who has already achieved this level of detachment, desirelessness, then we can bring some of that into us, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So if we dwell our minds on saints and sages who have the qualities we wish to cultivate, then those qualities will come towards us, right? So sometimes I like to bring Ramana Maharishi. I feel like he's inside me, in my heart, right? So, for example, when struggling with a situation, if we can find the mindfulness, right? Because the first thing is we have to make space. Very often we just react to things, right? We're not able to make that space. Something happens and before we know it, it's like, it just all came out. We don't even know how it came out. But if we can start to make the space and remind ourselves to come back, and we could use a sutra like this to say, how would Ramana Maharishi behave in this place? It's like comparing yourself to like the best of the best. It's kind of hard to imagine ever being in his state, but it can still help. I find it still helps. It wouldn't bother him, for example, somebody cuts in line in front of you, or you're driving and somebody cuts you off. This kind of minor thing isn't going to bother you if you can put yourself in the mind of somebody who has released desires, right? So it can help bring you back like to, okay, let this go, right? Okay, so another quote from Hariharananda. A mind full of passion or desires finds it easy to think of objects. So, because we have to not to misunderstand. It's not like I'm going to focus, if I focus on like the latest technology, the latest iPad and phones and things like this is easy to get entranced by, right? Or fashion, you go shopping, you see all those beautiful things. It's really easy to kind of get sucked into that. But this isn't the kind of mind that we're looking for, right? But finds it difficult to get into a carefree, self-centered state. And self-centered, again, is not like self-centered as in ego. It's being present with oneself. So it's for that mind that easily gets entranced by external objects. Oh, this meal, right? And then overindulging in that meal, in technology, in Netflix shows, whatever we get kind of entranced by. It's very hard to feel carefree and within myself, right? Whereas a mind free from passion finds it easy to be unattached and free. So we want to focus on those minds. And so we could sit. So we can use it in daily life, like I already described, you know, something's irritating you, and if you have the time before you react, bring yourself back and notice how would so-and-so react in a situation like this, and it can calm you down. Or when you're sitting in your meditation, you can bring yourself into that stage, right? As I said, I usually use Ramana Maharishi, but then I feel like I gain some of his qualities. You know, that sounds like a big thing to say. It feels a little bit silly because I admire him so much, but I really feel like you get a little bit of understanding from a sage like this somehow. Okay, so next one. I want to go through all of them tonight. So that was 137. 138, Sutra 1.38, Swapna, which means dream. Nidra, which is sleep or deep sleep specifically. Jnana is knowledge or insights. Alambanam is resting on or to hold attention. Or resting on insight from dreams or deep sleep. So it's another meditative tool, right? Basically, this segment is giving us a whole bunch of different tools to calm our mind, to meditate on. So we can learn a lot from analyzing our dreams because it's our unconscious mind, our subconscious mind. So he's suggesting that it could be one of the ways to calm the mind and to understand deeply our mind too, because when we dream, we're assimilating the day, right? The day or things that we weren't able to assimilate in, you know, last week or during our life or during our childhood. So he had suggested to meditate on this and to try to understand. Traditionally, it's on illuminated dreams, right? Or deep sleep. And like Ramana Maharishi talks about, are trying to, when we wake up, to see what it was to be in that deep sleep place, right? Because this is a time when our mind, we're closest to our deep self at that point, in an unconscious way, but we are close to that place. Okay? It's not the same as becoming enlightened in a conscious way, where we're using our mind and we're letting go of our mind, because there's a certain dullness to it when in deep sleep, but it's very close to that mindless state. So yeah, Ramana Maharishi often asked us to contemplate on who was still there, even when the thoughts were not. Or from where do our thoughts arise? So yeah, we can use this to concentrate on. Okay, let's go to the next one. Sutra 1.39. Yatna, which means as. Abhinamata, which is desired. So desired, what is dear to us, what is deep to us, which is meaningful to us. Dhyanad, which is meditation. Or. So or from meditation on what is dearly desired, but dear to us. It's not dearly desired in like a superficial way. So something that is really meaningful to us, what means a lot to us. So that could be a certain symbol, for example, like the Om symbol, or a cross, or a deity, or a saint, any kind of symbol that means something to us. So it's not that we're going to meditate on a symbol that means nothing to us, right? So what I find beautiful about that is that he lists all these things, and then basically at the end, whatever means something to you, you can meditate on. You could meditate on nature, on the mountains, on a beautiful stream, river, tree, a beautiful tree, right? We could meditate on any of those, and it's going to bring us some stillness and calmness in our mind. Let's see what else. And so you could see this as saying how practical and open-minded Patanjali was. And I think for me, this is a big lesson, because it's not like, oh, this is what we are supposed to do to reach that aim or that aspiration, that goal. It isn't narrow-minded, it's open-mindedness. Okay, so it tells me this about the Yoga Sutras, which is one of the reasons why I keep looking into them and keep trying to understand them in a deeper and deeper way, because I've been reading them for, I don't know, more than 20 years. So I don't get bored of reading it, because each time it gives me more and more understanding, and because it's not closed-minded. I think I would get bored very quickly if it was very closed-minded. If this is what it means, this is the only thing it means, and if you don't believe this, well, you're not doing it right, right? This kind of closed-minded attitude, I can't feel my heart in a closed-minded attitude. So it also is interesting to teach us that what we put our mind into, we receive, right? So if I focus my mind on something, I will gain insights into it. And so on some level, we have to take this very seriously, to be careful what we put our mind into, what we focus on, right? They say, for example, what we practice, we get better at. If we practice negativity, we're going to be masters of negativity, right? If I put my mind focused on negativity and, I don't know, what's another attitude, a certain attitude, then jealousy, if I put my mind into jealousy, then I'm just going to get better at that. So we need to be really aware of where we are putting our effort and our mind. So for example, so we must remember what we concentrate on, we become. If we choose to concentrate on money and possessions, we will know them really well. If we concentrate on money and possessions, we will get money and possessions, right? Perhaps we accumulate a lot and we get a lot of a certain amount of satisfaction in this prosperity. But we also pick up the subtle vibrations from this, right? There's going to be an attachment to that. You get a lot of stuff, a lot of money, or whatever it is, but in the end, and we have that prosperity, but we're going to be very attached to those. So we pick up the subtle vibrations of what we concentrate on. So we must be sure that that is what we want. What we concentrate is what we want, right? If we achieve and have attachment, then suffering and destabilization of the mind will come. Okay? So it's not going to stabilize the mind. So if we don't achieve the desires, then we are tormented by the idea of non-achievement. So if I focus on money and getting certain titles, for example, in my workplace, if I get them, I'm going to be attached to them. If I don't get attached to them, then I'm going to feel this unsatisfactoriness from not being able to achieve them or get them. Okay, so it's stuff to keep in mind. And this is a quote from Ramana Maharishi. So this was a question asked to him. How is the spiritual uplift of the people to be affected? What are the instructions to be given to them? So how do we uplift people, right? Maharishi. They differ according to the temperaments of the individuals and the spiritual ripeness of their minds. There cannot be any instruction en masse. So Patanjali gives us a whole bunch of different things that we can meditate on, because it's not going to be the same for everybody. And it's not even going to be exactly the same for us all the time, right? We're going to go through life and we're going to need to focus on different aspects to calm our minds. Okay, so all these have the goal to bring more steadiness to our mind. So if we sum it up on all these different, what we've been talking about last week and this week, to calm the chitta, to calm the consciousness, we can focus on the sutras from 133 until what we just finished, 139. So Maitri, friendliness, Karuna, compassion, Mudita, sympathetic joy, Upeksha, equanimity. We can regulate our breath. We can meditate on a sense object. We can meditate on that I amness, the light within. We can meditate on a mind that is already free from desires. We can meditate on our insights from dreams, or on the deep sleep state. What is that state, right? Or as desired. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little meditation and try to feel, intuit the light within our heart center. Okay, so come to sit with an elongated spine. So taking a few breaths, you can deepen the breath to calm the body. Bringing ourselves inwards. Noticing that inner vibration. Like we can feel the body from the inside out. First noticing the state of the inner vibration. Maybe it feels dull, maybe it feels overexcited. Looking for an awake feeling in the vibration, but at the same time should feel peaceful. You can use the breath to settle that vibration while also awakening it. Noticing the breathing. You can start to regulate the breath. making the inhales and the exhales the same length. And then slowly bringing the mind to the heart center. If it helps, you can place your hands on the heart center. If the mind, if the awareness leaves the heart center, just gently bring it back. And then imagining in the heart center that there's this self-illuminating light. The most beautiful light you can imagine. Coming from within. It's able to illuminate from the heart to infinity. And within that light, see if you can get a sense of the I, the I-ness. Not an I with any label. Just a sense of I exist. And I exist within that light. If the mind happens to wander, just gently bring it back. It's the nature of the mind to wander. So we don't want to judge it, admonish it. We just want to gently bring it back to its focal point. This self-illuminating light within the heart. And within that light is a sense of I-ness. Slowly bring your awareness back. You can bring the palms together. And gentle inhaling. Namaste. Thank you.